Hi everyone, thanks for joining our discussion. I am Seçkin Çağlın. I am one of the co-founders and co-CEOs of Cenoa. And today we'll talk about bringing DeFi to the next billion. It's a topic that's very close to my heart and very exciting topic. And just an intro about myself. I've spent the past 15 years building and growing financial brands and products. We founded Cenoa almost a year ago. Before that, I was leading one of the biggest car businesses, a fintech with more than 25 million cards and almost 4 billion transactions annually. And before that, I spent 8 years in McKinsey helping fintechs, banks all around the world. So you could say I'm from a traditional finance background. Let's start with these titles. The Global South, the emerging countries, rest of the world. And the question is, what do they have in common? One, we call them the rest of the world, but actually that's where most of the world lives. These are geographies where billions of people live. And two, these are geographies where billions of people actually struggle to live. They're crushed by inflation and devaluation. There are multiple problems in those parts of the world, of course, but inflation and devaluation and in general financial empowerment and inclusion is one of the biggest problems they face day to day. And just to give you an example, you see 6 example countries on the chart. This is just a small selection of those countries, but even just in those 6 countries, almost 750 million people live. And they experience inflation and devaluation numbers that are higher than 50% annually. And this is just the official numbers, of course. The real numbers are forecasted to be higher than 100% per year. And there are lots of more countries like these. Just to give an example, I said, let's take Turkey, my home country, as an example. I said real inflation is expected or estimated to be higher than 100%. But it gets worse when you start talking about day-to-day items like fundamental, basic, but fundamental and essential items like cooking oil or flour that a family needs. The inflation jumps up to 200, 300%. So these are very big numbers, and these are, just to simply put, really bad numbers. But it's more than numbers. So these are quotes from our real users, like what we heard from our users and potential users. There are people in these countries who give up eating meat just so they can feed their baby because of inflation. Or there are people who are working multiple jobs just to pay their rent. Or younger people who stop socializing, stop going out of their homes, or they just socialize at parks because they cannot even afford coffee, which went up like 500%. And also there are people who worked years and years and they saved some money, they built an emergency fund for a rainy day, and when the rainy day comes they realize their savings have collapsed, they are melted, so they lose complete trust in the system and they feel cheated. And unfortunately they have very few tools to fight back with inflation and devaluation. Like coping mechanisms, they spend less, like they cut everything that's absolutely nice to have, and most of the things that are must-have, but you can still live without them, like eating meat for a lot of people. They spend fast. Whenever they get their salary, they try to buy as much as possible what they will need for the month, because if you can buy a kilo of tomato today, maybe you can buy half of that in a week because of devaluation, so they try to buy and store everything they can. They hunt for deals online, they spend hours looking for discounts. People walk 1 or 2 miles just to get 10% discount in real life. For groceries, they're working multiple jobs, etc. And on the financial tool side, they don't have many. We keep hearing these 3 tools that they use, but unfortunately, they're not super helpful. For example, when you get your salary, you can put it in the bank, get yield in local currency called deposit accounts. But usually they require you to lock up your money longer than a month, 3 months, 6 months, but most of these people need the money within the month. Also, even if you can lock some of your money for 3 months, the yield you are getting is way lower than inflation. Like in Turkey, you are getting 14% annual yield on your Turkish lira. The inflation is, real inflation is calculated as around 100%. Some people buy gold. That serves a purpose for longer term savings a little bit, but still, it's hard to buy gold, store gold, and if you need it within the month, it's difficult operationally. You can get robbed, etc. And the price of gold is not stable. And number 3 is the most popular one. There are a lot of challenges around it, but it's super popular. Just to give an idea, in Turkey and Argentina runs on physical dollars, as you hear. In Turkey, within the banking system, 80% of the deposits are in dollarized products like dollars and dollar index funds, let alone what people keep in their houses under the pillow. Let's take dollars, for example. So I said dollars is one of the very few ways people can fight with inflation, but it's very difficult and expensive to use dollars. Like 6 problems, I can count 4 more, but it wouldn't fit the slide. 1, buying dollars is expensive. Like you pay up to 5% in a lot of these countries just to buy dollars. 2, it's difficult. Some countries, it's completely illegal. Some countries, there are restrictions on amount. In some countries, the process is so bureaucratic that people don't want to waste their time. 3, there's no way to use those dollars day to day. Like you cannot go to a grocery store and spend those dollars. I mean, it's not something difficult for the current system to do, but they just don't do it in most countries. 4, you get 0% yield on your dollars. Like if you are in US, you can use Apple Card or other fintech products to get 4%, 5% yield, but in emerging markets, mostly you get 0. And if a friend or family member needs help in the same city or abroad, it's really hard to send dollars to them, and it's very expensive. And the thing with this is, inflation and devaluation didn't happen by accident, by chance, or by coincidence. It is a product of the system, and that's why people are excluded from inflation protection tools kind of by design. So these problems exist not by coincidence. Like the system or the actors who create inflation and devaluation, they also kind of make it difficult and expensive to fight it on purpose. I don't want to get too technical, too deep into it, but usually it's either the system is super complex, people know what's the right thing to do, but they can't do it because it's super complex, there are a lot of actors, or there's lack of capability in the system, or third, they do it on purpose just to do wealth transfer between the poor and the middle class to the top 1%, and we keep seeing this in a lot of countries. So that's why if people want to fight inflation, if you want to help people fight inflation, we need new financial services based on new thinking. That's why I think a better name for this call, a better title would be, instead of bringing DeFi to the next billion, is helping billions of people fight inflation and devaluation with DeFi and blockchain. Because the number one thing any technology needs to get adopted is a killer use case, a huge problem that it solves 10x better than the previous one. And I think although people are in really dire situation, they are struggling. It has been this for years. Some countries are living through inflation for 30 years. Some of them started experiencing this problem more recently. But the good thing is now we have DeFi and blockchain. We can actually build a solution that can be sustainable and trustworthy without relying too much on the existing system, like existing financial system, existing political system. We can build something completely new. And we think one of the biggest use cases of DeFi and blockchain will be fighting inflation in inflationary countries, honestly. And that's because DeFi and blockchain is offering some benefits that are huge and that we could not offer in any other technology before. Like whatever we build is borderless. Like if you build a product, people can access from anywhere. Like I said, Apple offers 4% in US, but if you live in Nigeria, Argentina, Turkey, you cannot access that product. But with DeFi, if somebody solves a problem, the whole world can access it. Number 2 and 3, the cost to exchange and send money is way lower. As I said, in real world, you use SWIFT system, just sending money costs like $50, exchanging costs 5%, but in DeFi, you can, on Avalanche, it's just 1 cent to send money anywhere, like from Istanbul to Rio or to Berlin, wherever you want, and in a second. And there are other benefits like higher yields, lower regulation cost, and lower infrastructure cost. If you are building a fintech, you need to get a different license for every single product in every different country. And it's a huge cost. That's why PayPal, Wise, Revolut, Chime, Nubank, they spent the first 10 years in one country. But with DeFi, you can build something great and have billions of people use it instantly. So this page is the page that gives hope to a lot of people. Like if you wait, the current system, current regulators, current financial system to solve the problem of these people, we are not very optimistic. We have waited long enough. I myself, I'm 37 years old, and I've seen multiple cycles of inflation in my country and around the world, and it always keeps coming back. But with blockchain and DeFi, we can solve this problem for good. But here, we also need to talk about what does everyday people want. Because as you know, for 99% of people, money is not an objective, it's just a tool. It's like gas for your car. Like you want to visit your parents, but you don't want to think about the oil. Money is the same way. You want to build your career, you want to send your kids to good schools, you want to go on a vacation, you want to buy groceries. Money is the byproduct, so you don't want to be, most people don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about their money and finances. So they want 3 things basically. The first 2 are the same as today. The third one is new. 1 is same security as banks. 2, same user experience as neobanks. 3, better economics. Here, the good thing is, if you are a blockchain and DeFi startup, some of these is already addressed by blockchain DeFi natively. Like lower fees, higher yields, no lockup fees, etc. It's already there. Some of these you can solve as a startup, like people need simple user experience. They want simple knives and forks as opposed to Swiss Army knives with 100 different functionalities. That's something you can solve, and then in Cenoa, that's something we solve. Or having a trusted brand. People want to know your brand automatically and trust it as opposed to spending hours online researching it. That's also something solvable. Like we can build a brand, we can do big partnerships with big brands and create that. So the good news is, I think 1/3 is solved by DeFi, 1/3 we can solve within our startup for good. But there are others that we need help as the whole DeFi ecosystem, because one of the things people want is insurance. And as a startup, if you are at the wallet level solving user experience problems, on-ramp problems, simplicity problems, you don't want to solve everything because you have to focus. Insurance is one of them. The other 2 things that we see huge improvement area in DeFi ecosystem is easy on-off ramp. So that's a technical jargon. For everyday people, it is they want to deposit easily and they want to withdraw easily. This can be fiat, this can be cash. And third, they want to spend it in shopping, which means we need players to make it easy for merchants to accept your stablecoins on Avalanche or other chains. I will talk a little bit about Cenoa in the next slide, but I think we have huge potential to solve a huge problem and bring billions of people on board. To repeat, DeFi solves 1/3 of the problems natively. The other 1/3, the simplicity, the brand, etc. A wallet startup, a neobank startup can solve by itself, but we need partners to solve the whole problem. You know, there's an African saying, it takes a whole village to raise a kid. I think these are the areas where we see a lot of startups, but also we need more focus, especially in countries like Africa, Middle East, Asia, etc. Latin America is in better shape, but still there is opportunity, but especially Middle East, Africa, Asia, if you are building easy on-off ramp or payment networks to pay with stablecoins from the blockchain directly, there is huge potential and need. People are desperate. And that's exactly what we focus on in Cenoa. Like, we aim to bring the next billion to DeFi, but actually we want to help billions of people fight inflation. What Cenoa is It's the dollar account for everyday people. It's the dollar account for people in emerging markets that are suffering with inflation. And you can think of it, technically it's a non-custodial wallet. But we make two things easy. We make accessing dollar-based products like buying dollars, holding dollars, sending dollars, and growing dollars easy and cheap. Try to solve some of the traditional financial problems. As I said, we are leveraging Avalanche blockchain and the protocols within it like Aave, Stargate, Banki, Trader Joe, Pangolin for exchanging from local digital currencies to stable coins like USDC and to earn yield. But as I mentioned, we are live on close to 50 countries, mostly in Europe. We are hoping to expand to some of the more inflationary countries like Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Pakistan, etc. But we are in the process of integrating with fiat on-ramps, off-ramps. If you are in one of the fiat on-ramp companies, we would love to talk to you. If not, you are in this conference. I strongly recommend you to start a fiat on-ramp, off-ramp company. Could be custodial, could be peer-to-peer. There is huge need and demand. Like, we just do traffic testing in some of these countries. We get thousands of downloads with less than $1 cost per install, and people are killing our support groups with questions like, how can I buy dollars? How can I buy dollars? All they need is a peer-to-peer fiat on-ramp or something else so we can make it work. Other than that, we are hiring, or you can be a user. To recap, this has been a huge problem, inflation, and I think growing up, I was more optimistic and naive. Like, I hoped the current systems will solve it, but after 30 years of observing emerging market economics, I'm not super optimistic, and thanks to DeFi and blockchain, we can solve it, but we need partners. Thank you for listening.